7, Houston. We have you go for orbit here. Go for orbit.
Beautiful.
Two huge radio telescopes will try to pick up signals from the most ambitious search yet for extraterrestrial life.
This is Apollo 8 coming to you live from the moon.
NASA has confirmed that they have evidence of life beyond Earth.
If this discovery is confirmed, it will surely be one of the most stunning insights into our universe that science has ever uncovered.
Please, for mankind.
Visions of the mysterious and the supernatural have always been part of some people's world, though what they see has changed over the years. Once it was gods and angels, now it seems it's extraterrestrials.
Welcome to the X Zone on 1290 CJBK, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality.
70% of North Americans believe in UFOs, and half of those believe in alien abductions. Here, talk of aliens and the experiences of people who believe they've been abducted by them, and the everyday subjects of ordinary conversations and radio phone-ins.
If I had to say to somebody, what is this about? I would say that I've come into this lifetime, and I've said this since I was old enough to be able to have a thought like this in my head, so maybe 8 years old, that all I want to do by the time that I die is be wise. I want to know everything that there is to know as a human being.
Welcome to another edition of the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I will be your host, your guide, as together we cross the time-space continuum to a place that I call the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard.
Rob McConnell's show is syndicated and receives calls from all over Canada and the United States.
414, but on the line with me now is Mary Keller. Now, Mary, you had UFO experience.
Yes, I've had a major encounter in 1972. I was in my bed and I was very aware that there were beings standing on either side of me, two on my right and one on my left. The first things that had gone through my mind were that my infant daughter was in the other room, and I had this thought in my mind that I shouldn't open my eyes and that she was fine.
In all the encounters, are the extraterrestrials identical?
Well, throughout all of my encounters, I've always had tall beings. They seem to be robed and they seem to be shrouded in light.
I'd just like to take a call here. We've got a young lady on the line. Stephanie, welcome to the X Zone. Have you ever had a UFO experience?
I just happened to be walking into a room in the house and looked up, and there was this being standing there. I couldn't see his facial features, and I kind of screamed. I'm like, where are they from? Are they from the future? What are they doing here? I'm basically, a lot of times I think, did I imagine that? I doubt myself.
There are 900 million Roman Catholics, just as an example, who believe in a God that they've never seen. You know, there's a lot of people in many theological books throughout the centuries that have had the similar types of experiences you have had.
What I wanted to know was, is it to do with me?
For every 100 UFO reports that I get, 97.5% are explained. They may be aircraft, they may be gliders, but 97.5% of all UFOs that come to me as a researcher and as a journalist are explained. It is the 2.5% that really interests me, and these are the people who have encounters that cannot be explained.
Joining us on the phone now is Patrick Cross. Patrick, welcome to the Zone.
Hey, how are you doing today, Rob?
Not too bad, good sir. Can you tell me about your experience? How did you come out of that?
For the first one, I was more in shock as far as UFO craft being out there, 30, 40 feet long, glowing, right out of a space movie.
Your belief system, your belief in religion, your belief in theology, how was that affected by your encounter?
It made me, at the time, think there was something bigger in the universe besides, you know, what we normally assume the daily life.
This is the X Zone on 1290 CJBK. If you have a question or have had a paranormal experience, call Rob McConnell now at 643-1290.
Well, overall, there was a total of verifiable sightings that I found was 106.
My own early experience when I was a kid. It's something I don't like to talk to about usually in public just because people brand you.
It was the 5 flying saucers, and coming from the right side, the curve of the front of this windowless mothership.
I was out with my pony riding and saw this silver globe, sort of football-like shape, approaching us on the horizon.
Call A Universal Limousine to book your luxury transportation to and from your upcoming sporting events.
If you have ever heard anything about alien abductions, you will know the name Bud Hopkins. Bud has devoted himself to researching the abduction phenomena ever since his own daytime UFO sighting on Cape Cod more than 30 years ago, and has investigated hundreds of people's abduction experiences. Can you tell us a bit about your first experience and how you got involved in the UFO alien abduction?
Well, Rob, I had a daytime UFO sighting many years ago on Cape Cod, and up until that time, I had absolutely no interest in the subject and was, in fact, a skeptic about it. I wasn't even sure what it was supposed to be, but I had no interest in it.
We were seeing a circular, metallic-looking object, sort of a dull aluminum, no lights or anything like this. And I got the feeling that it was as if all of us down on Earth, it's as if we were at the bottom of an aquarium. And it was looking at us. We were the fauna and flora on the bottom of the sea, and then the thing was taken up. But that was the sense I had, that suddenly I saw the world that I belonged to as not the whole world, not the whole universe. I began finding people were contacting me. They were coming up with exactly the same details, exactly the same reactions, exactly the same account of what the alien figures looked like, what the interior of the ship looked like. And these people were so obviously sane that I was reluctantly persuaded that these things may be actually happening.
Since that early experience, Bud Hopkins has devoted himself to working with other people who believe they've been abducted by aliens.
I started seeing a light. It was pacing back and forth, like looking through these trees. It had a very metallic grayish black bottom to it. And I actually thought I was touching it. I didn't know if I was touching it or I was just putting my hand up to it. And I remember feeling, it was almost like I was feeling the color. I wasn't touching it. I don't know, it's kind of, and that whole part, I felt very calm, very peaceful.
I'd rather be reading about somebody else's story. But there's something very special about being included in a cosmic community program. You know, I mean.
Rich, how about you? The drive on the highway?
It was about 50 feet long, black silhouette, rectangle with the stars in the middle of this thing. Perfectly vivid memory of that, just like I'm looking at you guys here. There's no doubt about that. And it singled me out on a crowded highway. That it's an amazing thing, it's a great thing for me, but I don't get this, you know, why didn't somebody say something to me, but...
Yeah. Well, you didn't get a message, is the point, right? I mean, you feel that you had a vision which could be a moment of epiphany, but the problem was there was no message.
That's right.
Saturdays and Sundays, the West Vendors Market.
You have one new message.
Welcome back to the X Zone on 1290 CJBK.
There's no explanation for it. We shot some good video of it, though.
We've had a lot of abductions and sightings in the western half of the United States. We've had a lot of them here in Utah.
This thing came down. It was just a ball of light, and it dispersed in a multitude of colors. And before our eyes, there was an alien spacecraft there.
I remember at that point looking up, and you couldn't see the sky anymore. So at that point, I don't remember too much.
Abductees' accounts can sound like fantasies and they're easy to dismiss. But recently that's begun to change. ever since a distinguished Harvard psychiatrist said that he believed his patients' stories.
The whole thing sounded like something that had really happened to people. They talked about it like you would talk about a real event, particularly a disturbing event, with appropriate feeling and doubt and all the things that a person of sound mind does. The only problem was that what they were speaking about is not possible. So I was faced with a dilemma. Either I try to take this material and jam it into some kind of old psychiatric model into which it would not fit, or I had to expand my worldview. It was, in a sense, it was a battle within me between my clinical judgment and the way I was brought up to think that the world was. And I trusted my clinical judgment more than I trusted my worldview. What they're reporting doesn't behave like anything else. It's not like fantasy, which is very individual. It isn't like dreams. It's not any kind of delusion. They suffer, as far as I can tell, from no kind of psychiatric problem that could account for this. Now, what they're saying has happened to them we don't believe can happen. That's really not my problem, in a sense. That's to figure out how do we reconcile those discrepancies.
That's awesome. Does anybody else want any other food? The first real experience started for me one night with the realization that something was on the end of the bed. We didn't have any animals in the house, and so I went through a huge panic trying to determine what it might be. And as it stepped its way up on either side of my legs, I began to panic, realizing that I was awake and now this experience was very much in my reality. And it paused and stopped with one knee on my chest, one knee on the other side of me, two arms straddled around my neck. And although my eyes were not open at the time, I was aware that it was very close to me. And from that point in time, the next thing I remember was going through the wall, through the doors, through the tree, and into an experience. I have no way of describing this because we don't do this normally, but it went inside of my head and it started spitting information at me about 90 million miles an hour. Colors and shapes and numbers and descriptions and definitions and just an unbelievable amount of information. And as soon as it was done with that, it did the reverse process, taking shots and pictures and pictures and pictures and pictures of my life. And so I literally watched my life pass before me.
My first encounter was in 1989. I went to bed, as usual, and I woke up, and I wasn't in my bed anymore. I was in the downstairs of my house in my living room. And I was standing there in the middle of the living room and not knowing what I was doing there. And all of a sudden I saw these long fingers, very light-colored fingers, come across my arms. And my body raised up, like it levitated up into the air. And all of a sudden I just went out through our living room window. Now, none of this worked. None of this seemed like it was possible. I'm headed towards the window. I'm going, no, I'm going to break the window. You know, no, this isn't possible.
There seems to be a consistent pattern, the pattern that when you first come onto